Anthony writes in, he says, hey, hey, ho, ho, union power will never go. And then Anthony says, you are a union person, aren't you, Darryl? Are you not a member of the Radio Broadcasters Union? Well, first of all, there's no such thing as a Radio Broadcasters Union. There is AFTRA, which is for performers on radio and television. Do you mean throw stones at, to denigrate and castigate all union members, or just those whose opinions do not agree with yours? Hey, hey, ho, ho, hypocritical broadcasters have got to go. Well, Anthony, first of all, I'm not a union member. Never have been a union member, never have been a member of AFTRA. And pretty much in my entire 30-year career in radio, I've been in management, so I never would really become a union member anyway because of my real job in radio, which is management of radio stations. So, sorry, Anthony, you lose on that one. But it brings me to this. And this is a message to Tea Partiers. And don't take offense at what I'm going to say here. But, boy, you sure had big mouths leading up to the November election. There you were with the flag, don't tread on me, cut expenses, cut budgets, slash and burn. And then all of a sudden, the budget cuts are affecting you. And now you're ashamed of being involved in the Tea Party movement. So why is that? Why are you being so hypocritical? Case in point, letter to the editor in the Cincinnati Enquirer this past week. As a member of the Northern Kentucky Tea Party, I was blindsided by the support for Senate Bill 5. That's the one in Columbus. Not one word of this type of an attack upon organized labor was revealed during the midterm election. If it would have been, this 25-year union man would never have joined the Tea Party movement. And this is written by Anthony Mueller of Bromley. Anthony, were you not listening to the message? Were you not hearing the politicians? Hello, Anthony? Anthony? Were you not hearing your movement, which was all about less and smaller government on all levels? The cries about how government is broke and government is bankrupt, fiscally and morally. Now, Anthony, you have a problem with the people that you put in office, because for once, they're actually doing their jobs. Why is that a surprise? I don't get it. And to people like Anthony, why are you so insecure about your beliefs? I have made this point numerous times. Many people have big mouths. Many people will show up at rallies, in this case, the Tea Party rallies, wave flags, point fingers, express their displeasure, but all of a sudden, when it comes time for you to sacrifice and give up something, well, you don't want to do it. Interesting, isn't it? For once, they appear to be doing what needs to be done. Yesterday, Governor Kasich called into the Willie Show. The union brother, Bill Cunningham now, and saying, look, the state's broke. Willie, I'm going to do what's right. John Kasich is one. I have made fun of John Boehner. I have made fun, and in fact, I was all over him crying years ago. Way before it became fashionable after his appearance on 60 Minutes, when he was sobbing. But I didn't see John Boehner come running to save the contract for the engines at GE. You know, the engines no one wants. John Boehner appears to be doing what is right. John Kasich doing what is right. I'm just curious, why are you so insecure? It is fascinating to me. You yelled, you protested, you went to rallies, you demanded change in the midterm elections. You got change in Wisconsin. You got change in Ohio. You got the union people all PO'd in Indiana now. Protests being planned around the country. But you were the people that led for the change. Time to look at yourself in the mirror. I'm sorry. I am sorry. But time to walk into the bathroom, walk into your bedroom, look in the mirror, and say, this is what I wanted. And stop being hypocrites. Because you know what's happening is needed. 513-749-7000, 1-800-THE-BIG-1, pound 700 on AT&T. I'm Darryl Parks on the big one, 700 WLW. 700 WLW, Darryl Parks on a beautiful Saturday. The sun shining here in the tri-state. We've got sports tomorrow. And I'll tell you what, this is the weekend we wait for every... still winter. We still have another few weeks in winter, but it's the Reds taking on the Cleveland Indians. 2:35 for the inside pitch tomorrow. Marty Brenneman, Jim Kelch have the call from Goodyear, Arizona, right here on the home of the Reds. 700 WLW, 11:33 tomorrow morning. The UC Bearcats take on UConn, and Dan Horde and Chuck Mashock with the call from Fifth Third Arena. So a doubleheader of sports tomorrow on 700 WLW. 513-749-7000, 1-800-THE-BIG-1 is the number. Should a line become available, here is Scott, 700 WLW. Hey, Scott.
Good morning, Darryl. How are you?
Good.
I just want to run this by you. What's the possibility that this individual that's complaining from the so-called Tea Party is, in fact, not part of the Tea Party himself?
Well, that's a possibility, but this is not the first time I heard it. A week ago on Friday, a guy called up to Willie, who was a union member, and he said he's resigning from the Republican Party because he's embarrassed he voted for John Kasich because he didn't think John Kasich would actually do what he campaigned to do.
Well, that could be a number of the people like that within
There's
the
a
Tea
lot
Party.
of people. No, look, Scott, people want to have big mouths. People want change. They want to point fingers. They want to say, hey, we have to cut the budget. We have to downsize. We need a smaller government. And look, I'm all for all of that stuff. I'm for all of it. I am for this bill as it is in Columbus. I mean, I'm going to get into this next hour, but that bill would have saved $1.3 billion in 2010 alone. You know, when people talk about the state of Ohio being upside down or in deficit in the budget at $8 billion, that's a biannual budget, so it's $4 billion a year. So this $1.3 billion right there, if this bill were enacted, would have saved a full third, 33% of what is needed.
And that's exactly
just
where
like
we need
that.
to go.
You see, that's where the money is.
Exactly. Well, look at Bonyers. You brought that up a little bit ago about the engine. You're right. We don't need that engine.
Right, and you don't see him crawfishing. You don't see him changing. For once, John Boehner is standing up and saying, look, we don't need the engine. I'm not going to support it.
I thought he did support the engine.
Well, he supported the engine, but now that it was cut, he's not putting it back in.
Well, that's good. That's good because, you know, people like that we hear a lot from, what's the Congress lady Bachmann up in Minnesota?
Yeah, Michelle Bachmann, yeah.
Michelle Bachmann, she was all for cutting it. I mean, she stood strong and she stood solid on things. Yet they're the ones that people want to go after is Bachmann is being nuts But, she's calling for these cuts, and she got what she wanted down here in Ohio, and I'm all for it.
No, John Kasich was very clear yesterday when he called into Willie's show. Hey, look you elected me to do this. We're going to fix this. We're not going to kick the can down the street. We're not going to worry about this after I get reelected for my second term. I'm going to fix it, and we're going to fix it now.
Yeah. I've been on 2 or 3 Tea Party ventures over in D.C. I don't have the kind of money to run back and forth. I'm not supported with a union, for buses, transportation, food, and housing and so forth. So it's a little harder for people like myself to get out there and protest, yell, and scream like you say. It needs to be said, and I think we said it loud enough to get the changes done in last November. Hopefully, we'll continue to push on until 2012. It needs to be done.
Look, Scott, so much is talked about when they talk about deficits in whatever level of government it is. That's not where the money is. Yes, it's a lot of money, and they have to balance these budgets on a state level and a local level, and I don't know what kind of shape Springfield's in. But, the real money is in these pensions.
Yeah.
I've made the point, if you look at how does the city of Cincinnati, how are they behind over $1 billion in their pension?
Because they kicked us down the road.
Right, and they're still not doing anything.
You have the people and the committees there that will go along with the unions, go ahead and beef up those pensions, knowing they're not going to be in office later on. Mm-hmm. They got the votes, they got the pension for them, and they don't care because they've got their own pension and they're done.
Well, Scott, I'm going to tell you, Scott Walker in Wisconsin and John Kasich, after his call to Willie yesterday, both of those guys have impressed me. Neither are caving. John Kasich said, hey, look, I'm willing to listen to some adjustments here, but we're going to make these cuts, and we're going to do what's right. And John Kasich proved to me yesterday he has got a pair of stones.
I was worried about him when I voted for him. I thought I was going to hold my nose and vote for him, but I'm all for him.
Well, I want you to know I did hold my nose and vote for him.
Well, hopefully things will be turning around for us. I was really worried about a couple, 2 or 3 years ago, but it seems like Ohioans has woke up a little bit. Yes, there are some more lily-livered ones out there that you like.
Well, is Bill Sainz? I mean, Doc Thompson has been talking about it all week. Bill Sainz shows up here and he's crawfishing. Oh, well, no. I have to worry about being reelected. I stand with. I'm not in support of this bill. Please. Come on, man. If you're going to be a loudmouth, you're going to speak out about conservative values and principles, be conservative, will you? Don't be a rhino. 7 in front of 10. I'm Darryl Parks, 700 WLW. On my blog at 700WLW.com, I made a point last Saturday about what a public employee versus a private employee makes. Have the facts and figures from the Buckeye Institute in the paper that was published at the end of last year on December 31st, 2010. And if you head to my blog, the link is there, 700WLW.com, and search the word Darryl. By the way, the public employee in salary in Benny's, about $1 million more. Hello, Sharon. How are you this weekend?
Hey, Darryl. I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good. Listen, I was up at I'm a proud member of the Warren County Tea Party, and we were up at the S.B.5 rally last Thursday with our, vote for S.B.5 signs and getting yelled at and screamed at by these sacred cow people that think that they shouldn't be touched. And
you mean the teachers that were taking a sick day?
Oh, yeah. The teachers that it's for the kids. Well, if it's
always
for
about
the kids, go teach your kids.
Well, there was a sign in Wisconsin. It was comical. It was about a week ago. There was one person holding up a sign. It was a teacher that said, I'd rather be teaching. Well, go ahead. Who's stopping you?
That's what you're being paid for.
Yeah.
But, the statistic, and my comment is, you know what, Gerald? I'll take a hit to save this country. I'll take a hit to save the state of Ohio. Mm-hmm. But, we all have to get rid of the me factor. And we have to understand that our country and our state and our local governments are in deep doo-doo. Mm-hmm. And we have to be willing to give up something to save it. And,
well, few people, you see what happens when it comes down to putting skin in the game. No one wants to do that because, it's deeper than economics, Sharon. People don't want any responsibility in life. They don't want to be accused of anything. They just want no responsibility. And the fact is, to your point, we're all responsible. I made the point and I figured it out how much everyone, you said you live in Warren County, but how everyone in Hamilton County, how much we owe on those two stadiums. And we own those stadiums. And I'm a resident of Hamilton County, and the debt that is owed on those stadiums, I'm responsible for a part of it in a roundabout way. We have to do what is right. And you have to stop being all about me. All right. $1.3 billion, which is about a third of what is needed to be cut out of the Ohio State budget on an annual basis. If this bill were in law today, that's how much the state would have saved in 2010. And yet there are those of you that are still crying. Crying, me. Protect me. We'll discuss at 10:06 on the home of the Reds, 700 WL.
This is a special podcast presentation from 700WLW.com. This is Darryl Parks On Demand.
Teachers are gearing up to protest in all 50 states. Going to take some sick time and head to state capitals all across the country and protest, huh? I'd rather be teaching. But I have to go to Columbus, and I have to go to Madison, Wisconsin, and in Albany, New York, and Indianapolis, Indiana, Frankfort, Kentucky, to protest. Yeah. By the way, the whole this is all about, and I've heard few people really frame it this way. This is all about public employees and their entitlement attitude. They're real easy. A lot of these people and these loudmouths, I'm a conservative. Look at those welfare people. Look at them. Well, you got to look in the mirror and you got to say, hey, look, I have an entitlement attitude as well because I got this fat pension in many cases. Not all people that are public employees have fat pensions, but, many do. Have some good bennies, good pension plan, good health care benefits, pays pretty good, got job security. Yeah, that's one thing. Oh, by the way, there are a lot of correlations and commonality between what's happening in state capitals and the public employees and them protesting and the NFL players. Why aren't the NFL players supporting their union brothers and sisters in the public sector? Why is that? They both say it's not about money. They both say it's about security. And here's the deal. Look. With the NFL players, what's the average career? What, about 3 years, 3.5 years? And then the players whine about this. Well, we only can play for 3.5 years on average. And that's very true. The people that play like Brett Favre for 20 years, few and far between. People that have a career that lasts 10 years, again, kind of rare. 3.5 years. A running back, after about 4 seasons, they're broken down. But it's the job and the career you chose. You knew it getting into it. You knew it in college. When a player doesn't graduate and they enter into the draft prior to graduation, they do it because they don't want to blow out a knee in their final year of eligibility in college. Because they can make a big They can make a boatload of money. It is the career you chose. The same thing if you go to work in the public sector. It is the career you chose. No one forced you to take the job. No one. And I always question, where is the responsibility in this? Yeah, teachers whine about job security, and teachers whine about how much they work at home. I work at home. I didn't ask Clear Channel to buy me a computer for my office at home. I went across the street to Kenwood Town Center and bought an Apple computer a couple of months ago. I didn't put it in as an expense. These are the careers we chose. Speaking of entitlement attitudes, why does a city employee... Now, I'm going to qualify this. If you're on call 24 hours a day, for instance, maybe you're the chief of police. You're the assistant chief of police. You're the fire chief. Okay, you can get a company car. But why do rank and file members and employees need company cars? There are 138 company cars given to employees in the city of Cincinnati that we're paying for. Not only that, we pay for the gas. The city annually buys 2 million gallons of fuel so the take-home vehicles could fill up there. So they don't even go to the BP and put their own gas into it. We're paying for them to go to Kroger. We're paying for them to drive the car to maybe a Reds game or to the shopping mall. You and I both know these cars are being used in a private way. Why are we paying this? I mean, are people that work in city government, or at least these 132 vehicles, are you incapable of going to Castrucci Ford and buying a vehicle and buying a nice car? What's with this benefit? Yeah, Jeff Burning, God bless Jeff Burning, who's quitting. And I know Jeff from his work with the Bengals and our association with the Bengals. Jeff's a good guy. You know, he said and he's right. We could use that money to not lay people off and keep the swimming pools open. Now, isn't that logical? Look, give up your car that you don't need. And let's not lay off a fellow employee because you give up your car. Maybe treat the kids to a swim when it's 90 degrees out in July. Better our quality of life in our community. But these are this also. I mean, people probably aren't willing to give this up. Records show employees who log about 5,500 miles with a take-home car has driven all but 4 miles of that simply commuting to and from work. This according to Jeff. Much like you, I drive to work every day. I drive round trip about 20 miles. That is part of my gig. Darryl, come into the office. We have an office for you. We have a nice computer for you, Darryl. We have a phone with voicemail. We have all these things, Darryl. Darryl, we sure like it when you meet with fellow employees and you manage them. and you coach them. It is an expectation of mine that if I'm employed somewhere, I have a vehicle. Many of you have the same mindset, but there are those in the public sector that don't feel that way. That it's up to the city, in this case, city of Cincinnati, to pay for their vehicle. And not only pay for their vehicle, pay to gas it up. And please, before someone calls and says, do you realize how inconvenient it is for us to go to the city pumps and gas up? Please, don't make a fool of yourself. Thank you. 513-749-7000, our number. Let's head to Lebanon. Here's tax killer Sandra. How you doing, Sandra?
Hi, Darryl. Several years ago, when I was on the Lakota School Board, we were having negotiations, and as a board member, I was told that I could sit in on the negotiations, but I was not allowed to say one single word. All I was allowed to do was observe. And so an OEA negotiator came in and sat in on that meeting. The treasurer was there, the superintendent, a couple of the union reps, and the attorneys for the district. And that negotiator knew Lakota's financial situation 100% better than our treasurer did. She knew to the penny. And she was just a militant person.
Sandra, you may have heard a couple of years ago when the tax levy was put up for a vote in Forest Hills. I baited a couple of people to call me from the Forest Hills School District where I live. And the treasurer called in. And they were looking for, I forgot what the amount of money was. And they said they needed, I don't know, it was like $3 million. They were asking for $9 million. And I asked him, I said, well, what are you going to do with the other $6 million? He had no idea.
No, they don't know. But the point is that nobody is sitting on the tax in for the taxpayers. Even the elected board member is not allowed to say one word in those negotiations. But when they come out of those meetings, they say the board approves the negotiations. Well, I was the only board member there. The board members just left it up to the superintendent.
You know, Sandra, you bring up a great point. Here's the difference between public and private businesses. You know, a private business, when the CEO is sitting there, or the representatives of the CEO and the board of directors, you know, for instance, this is a rhetorical question, what is the responsibility of the board of directors of a big company? Very simple. They have a fiduciary responsibility to run the company in the best possible way and make the largest profit. Now, when you look at the public sector, you have a school board, i.e. a board of directors, right?
Right.
All right. What is their fiduciary responsibility? They have none.
They don't take the responsibility.
No, they don't have any. Legally, in a private company, legally, you know, those people could be sued if they tank a company. If they make bad decisions that are fiscally bad, they could be personally held responsible. Can a school board member?
Oh no, they won't take any responsibility at all. And another thing is those people are actually sponsored by the teachers union or the superintendent.
Sandra, it's more than that. Not only sponsored, but many of them are union members.
Right.
Yeah.
At Lakota, they had several teachers from other districts on their board through the years. So, you know, whenever you have and most of those people that were on the school board were militant, pro-union people. So, you know, we don't have anyone on the team. The team is not for the children. It has never been for the children, and people need to sit up and wake up that these schools are run by very militant people that do not care about their children, and why anyone would allow these kinds of people that you see in Wisconsin and in Ohio threatening people, shoving people, pushing them, and you put your children in those people's hands every day.
Well, you bring up Lakota. If it's all about the kids, the first thing they wouldn't have cut was the busing.
Was the busing.
Right. All right, Sandra,
That's
have
all
a great
I
weekend.
To say. You too. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye now. Tax killer Sandra out of Lebanon. We may be focusing the power of this show and the 50,000 watts off that sacred tower in Mason on the Lebanon school levy that's coming up for a vote shortly. I'm Darryl Parks, about 19 after 10. We'll check out the forecast. Not a bad forecast for this weekend. Final weekend in February on the way on the big one, 700 WLW. 700 WLW, Fox 19, Storm Tracker forecast. Steve Horsemeyer says for today, some sunshine this afternoon. High at 46. Tonight, partly cloudy and chilly, a low of 34. Tomorrow, cloudy and warmer. Scattered showers and storms in the afternoon, a possibility, a high at 56. And Monday, back to work with Jim Scott. Cloudy, warmer, rain heavy at times. Thunderstorms could be severe, 55 for the high. In fact, all week long, temperatures pretty normal in the upper 40s. Normal high for this time of the year, 47. 36 right now, 700 WLW. I'm Darryl Parks. By the way, I think some of the politicians in Ohio missed the boat. There were rumors that some of the politicians, to prevent a vote in Indiana, would head to Kentucky and wade across the Ohio River. As you know, some of the politicians in Wisconsin, the Democrats, went to Illinois and hung out at the Rockford. They know how to live there at some kind of resort in Rockford, Illinois, which is right after Toledo is the armpit of the Midwest. But I digress. I think the politicians in Ohio missed out. Think of the camera opportunities and the publicity they would have gotten if they would have hopped in a boat and rowed across Lake Erie to Ontario. That's big time right there. We're leaving the state and we're going to Canada, and we're going to sail across Lake Erie to Ontario. Oh, Lordy. 513-749-7000. Should a line become available here in the bunker today? In fact, a woman sent me a note this past week, and she said, all these protests that are being planned across the country now, where teachers are all getting PO'd. She said, you're going to have to protect yourself in the bunker. And I said, I'll have to barricade the door. Barricade the concrete door into the bunker. Leanne writes on my Facebook page, she says, Darryl, I'm an unemployed social studies teacher. I lost my job at the end of 2009. I have a master's degree in experience. In all likelihood, I will never teach again. I'm too expensive to hire. When I was laid off, the union abandoned me because I would no longer pay the dues, or I could no longer pay the dues. I would gladly give up collective bargaining because that mean I would have a job and I could teach again. And Tony writes on my Facebook page, he says, thank you, Darryl. Excellent job calling out the untouchables. Anyone who thinks they are not going to have to take less because of these poor days are ignorant you-know-whats. All right. Tony makes a point. 513-749-7000 to Loveland. Here is Calvin, 700 WLW.
Hi, Darryl. I'm the first-time caller on the radio station.
Well, I'm glad you called.
Oh, yeah, and I'm glad I got through to you. I was listening to some of the Tea Party stuff today and some of the union stuff, and out here it's a consensus that the grandmas and grandpas in Ohio can no longer afford to foot the bill for the union pensions. It's not so much that the unions cost so much as far as their wages, but the pensions are just, I've read about these, and they're just unreal.
Yeah, in fact, Calvin, if you go to my blog at 700WLW.com, there is a link to a study that was done by the Buckeye Institute. It was done at the end of 2010, and it looks at the total lifetime cost of a median employee, 30-year service, state employee versus a person that works in the private sector. And the state employee over that time will make almost $1 million more than the private employee.
Wow. And the double-dipping thing that we hear from school administrators who quit 1 year and they're hired like right away, and then they make almost twice the wages. Mm-hmm. I mean, these kind of things we just can't afford. And then all the schools are getting ready to put tax levies on the ballot here again in May. Mm-hmm. And so my wife and I are like, we can't pay any more taxes.
And the insidious thing, Calvin, is the way they sell the levies. You know, if you have a house, they always do it on the valuation of $100,000.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it's only going to be $250 per $100,000. Yeah. Well, you know what? There was a time, the last school levy that was passed in the city of Cincinnati. I know of an individual that lives in Hyde Park. Mm-hmm. And right after it was passed, I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, how you feel this morning?" And he went, why? And I said, your taxes just went up about $1,800. And I had no idea what his house was worth, but I know he has a nice house in Hyde Park. And I'm thinking, man, I mean, just getting nicked like that.
Oh, yeah, and they're passing this, I don't know if they call it nighttime millage or whatever that is, that people don't really have a say in. And so that happens. It's like 2% can be tacked on, maybe 3% can be tacked on.
Well, Calvin, to your point,
schools.
something has to change.
Yeah.
You know, I saw a quote. It was from the superintendent of schools of Little Miami about 3, 4, 5 months ago. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that school has been taken over by the state. They're in fiscal emergency, that school system in that district. And they the quote was that the state came in, looked at the books, and said they were running it pretty good. I'm like, well, how is the school district in fiscal emergency if you were running it? You know, you were doing a good job running the school district. You weren't.
I was at the meeting when the state was there last time, and it appears it's only costing $7,500 per student, not $9,500, and yet they've got people on good swim teams, great wrestlers.
Hey, it's a great school district. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's sad that they're in the financial shape they are, but the bottom line in that is the school board has not done their job, nor has the superintendent, nor has the treasurer. They have not done their jobs, and they have not done what was correct with the tax dollars you send to them. It's news time, 29 after 10. I'm Darryl Parks, 700 WLW. 700 WLW in the Cincinnati Museum Center, celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Hubble telescope. Some of the pictures over the years of the Hubble, incredible. Just awesome. Well, you want to see the movie? Well, you could win tickets to the OmniMax films, the presentation of the Hubble telescope, and some of the pictures over the past 20 years at the Cincinnati Museum Center. For more information, check out 700WLW.com and search the word contests. I'm Darryl Parks, 513-749-7000, 1-800-THE-BIG-1, pound 700, the new AT&T, should a line become available. And here's Rick in Sharonville, 700 WLW.
Hey, Darryl, first-time caller. You've hit a nerve, and I just wanted to call in and kind of tell you my feelings on this.
Go ahead.
I'm surrounded by, like I said, 4 generations of administrators, teachers, and aides, and I'm one of those types of people that represents a group that's gone out and gone to school and gone out to work in the public sector and try to make products and sell products to actually, take advantage of the American dream.
You mean private? You mean private sector?
I meant to say private. Yeah. Correct. I'm sorry.
That's good.
But anyway, what irritates me is that I go out, work 40, 50, 60 hours a week, take chances, start my own company, take risks, like a lot of us do. And I'm looking forward to Social Security when I retire, whenever that might be. And yet I have family members who, have never worked a 40-hour work week in their life, making $80,000 a year, who were administrators, every year for the rest of their life with full benefits, $80,000.
I have a sister-in-law that's retiring. She's, I believe, going to be 55, and she's retiring pretty much full bennies at 55.
Yeah, and that's my point.
I mean, what alternate universe are you living in if you think you should retire at 55?
Exactly, and I know family members that have been double dipping, which is literally stealing from us, people that are out there trying to make a living, in the private sector. And then I also see teachers that have no business trying to teach our kids, stealing money from us. That's flat out the bottom line. They're stealing money from us.
There are bad employees no matter what the industry and no matter what the business. All right,
in the private industry.
That is correct.
Private industry.
And that's a lot of what they're crying about is job security. I don't have any job security. I mean, Clear Channel can walk in here and whack me tomorrow.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Now you said you own you have a private business. You own it?
I did. Now I'm back working for another company.
Well,
I was up in Michigan and I did.
Well, tell me what your employment contract states.
Right now, today, you mean in my contract?
Yeah, could your employer walk in and fire you?
Absolutely, for any reason that they feel fit.
Correctly. That's look, I have a contract, but that's exactly what my contract says. Hey, look, we don't like the way you look today. We can get rid of you.
That's absolutely the truth, girl. And the bottom line is the part that really irritates me is that I'm not working 50, 60 hours a week, and the teachers are, not even working 40-hour weeks and off on the summer.
Well, wait a minute. Now, Rick, hold on, Rick. Let's defend the teachers. They take papers home and grade them.
Okay, I'm around 4 generations, and yes, they do that. And they do have to go and do some continuing education classes and things like that. I do agree on that, but
I'm being sarcastic. I'm being sarcastic because we all take work home.
There's some truth in that. There's some truth in that.
No, but we all take work home, Rick. I take work home. I do work at home.
They certainly don't put 60 hours in. I can guarantee you that.
Well, I know I don't have 2.5 months off in the summer.
Yeah, I know that too. And here's the other thing: is that I lost my train of thought there for a minute, but it's kind of aggravating to know that these people that, are usually graduating the bottom 1/3 of their class and, go out and don't have to perform and basically take our money and then retire with $50,000-$60,000 a year at age 55. Are we ever going to see that in Social Security? The collective bargaining has allowed them to basically extort money from us and cheat us, and then so us are out there trying to make a real living, trying to take advantage of the American dream, not living off the backs of other people's efforts.
Well, I'm not going to
pay salary.
Yeah, I'm not going to be making any. I'm not going to be making $60,000 a year in retirement from Social Security. That's for sure. What this is really about in Wisconsin, it comes down to this. Do you realize 74.2 cents of every dollar? Well, wait a minute. Let me say that again. It comes down, that's how many cents the public pays. Milwaukee public school teachers in Wisconsin. I made the point a couple of weekends ago that for the first time in 2010, a public school teacher in Milwaukee, on average, makes over $100,000 a year. The number is $100,006. $100,006. The average salary is $56,500. The rest is made up in benefits and pensions. That's in Milwaukee. 513-749-7000, the number. I'm Darryl Parks, 700-WL. 700-WLW tomorrow. Doubleheader of sports. The Bearcats take on UConn. Our coverage starts after Sunday morning sports talk with Ken Brew, 11:33 in the morning. Dan Hoard, Chuck Mashok have the call from Fifth Third Arena. And then after that at 2:35, it is baseball time. Oh, boy, that's going to feel good driving around tomorrow afternoon listening to Marty and Jim Kelch as the Reds take on the Cleveland Indians. First game of Cactus League Baseball, live from Goodyear, Arizona, here on the home of the Reds, 700 WLW. Opening day not that far away. Pete writes in to D. Parks at 700WLW.com. He says, Darryl, I'm a retired high school basketball coach and know a bunch of teachers and coaches. I have never known one to tell me they went into teaching for any other reason than they wanted summers off. Hey, that's a great Benny. Come on. Come on, teachers. You have to admit that. Having all those days and all those weeks off in the summer, that's happening. And then you don't have to worry about having a couple of weeks off at Christmas. That's happening. Yeah, a little Easter break, that's happening. Then you have all those federal holidays, days you should be teaching, like President's Day, teaching about the presidents, teaching about Abe Lincoln, George Washington, teaching about the history of the position. I can't find you with a search warrant on that day. And then you have, Martin Luther King Jr. Day? Yeah, off on that when you ought to be teaching about Martin Luther King Jr. And I know it's not your fault. I know it's not part of the curriculum in the school or demanded by the school that you teach those subjects on those days. It's more important for you to have off, maybe head to the casinos, head over to the mall, do a little shopping, do a little kicking back, a little relaxation, a little R&R. I know that's more important, but it's all about the kids. 513-749-7000. Here is Mike in Dayton, 700 WLW.
Hey, what's going on, Darryl?
Not too much, Mike. What's going on with you?
Hey, I coach a lot of youth sports up here, but I work for the private sector myself. I'm an engineer, but I deal with a lot of the teachers, And every time a school levy comes up here, I always have a bunch of questions, and I'm wondering why we need to pass more school levies and have more administration buildings. And I'm always villainized for it because I don't have the best interest of the kids. I'm like, the kids can learn anywhere. Kids can learn on a park bench. Kids can learn in 80-year-old buildings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I went to junior high school, I went to a public school system, and the junior high school building, I think, was built like in 1915, and part of it was condemned. I mean, and I got through school okay.
My kids go to a schoolhouse that was built in the 30s right now, and it's granted they've updated it through the years, but there's nothing structurally wrong with the building.
I got into a conversation.
I can't understand why they want to bulldoze it and build a new building.
Mike, I got into, because it's a political symbol. That's why there are a few old post offices in the country. That's why, the congressman says, hey, look what I did. I got them to build a post office here in whatever the community's name. I got into a conversation with my wife not too long ago, and she was talking about how that school buildings need to be updated because they need air conditioning now. And I said, what do you mean they need air conditioning? And I said, I got through school. There was no air conditioning in the schools I went to when I was in elementary and junior and senior high school. And she said, even in college, there was no air conditioning. And she said, what did they do when it was so hot? And I said, well, we opened up the window.
You opened the window, you went and got a drink of water. You did. I don't know. I don't understand why we got to handle our kids so delicately. Everybody's become so fragile these days.
Yep.
It's absolutely amazing.
Hey, Mike, I made the point a couple of weeks ago. I drive down Miami Road every day coming to work, drive through Indian Hill. And there was one morning, it was about 35 degrees. It wasn't very cold out. It was cloudy, but it wasn't snowing, nor was it raining. It was just 35 degrees, a normal morning. And I noticed that this mother would drive her minivan from the garage to the apron of the driveway on Miami Road, and the kids would sit inside the minivan, staying warm until the bus came up to pick them up at the foot of the driveway. And I'm thinking, and this house is set back maybe 30 yards from the road. It's not that far of a walk. I mean, it's not like they walked a half a mile from their house. And I'm thinking, you couldn't let your kids stand there in the driveway. You had to keep them warm in the minivan.
I have the same thing. My kids, I have a house that's probably about a couple hundred feet off the road because I have to live on 5 acres. But they walk down and they stand there and wait for the bus.
Well, Mike, we are raising veal. I've made the point numerous times. Our children are now veal. They are being milk fed. They are not being allowed out of their little stall. And they're going to be basically worthless and weak once they get into their adult years and into the business world. 10 before 11, Eric Dieter's on the way at 12:06. He's going to be discussing why employees don't sail across Lake Erie to Ontario when they get mad at their boss. Man, I'm telling you what. Those state reps in Columbus just missed out on the greatest opportunity ever. 700 WLW. Friend me on Facebook. Head to Facebook.com. Look up Darryl Parks. Follow along on the show. We got comments from Denny. We got comments from Leanne. We got comments from let's see here, Tony and Duran and many more. And join thousands upon thousands of my friends on Facebook. Facebook.com. Become my friend. Like me. 5 in front of 11 o'clock. The Bulldog. The dog is on the way at 12:06. I want to know why all those fellow Tea Party members that he... that group that he's involved with in northern Kentucky, why they're so insecure about their beliefs, why they cave all of a sudden, why they cave when their benefits are cut. Wonder if the dog is going to address that today. The dog. All right, here's Ryan in, now hang on here. I want to go to Mike in Columbus. Mike, no, I don't want to go there either. Let's see here. I want to go to Mark in Cincinnati, 700 WLW. Hey, Mark.
Hey, good morning. Enjoy listening to you. Hey, I'm a state employee, and that's great. I mean, I agree with most of the things you said, but a lot of my buddies who decided to take jobs with the CPA firms and manufacturing firms as accountants, and they went for the money. They said, we don't want to be like, I wanted the time off, more, shorter hours, less pay. And while they
that's not true.
Go. Oh, yeah.
On average, it's not true, though. A state employee, on average, over 30 years will make $1.8 million, almost $1.9 million. A person in the private sector will make just over $1.2 million.
And where was this statistic from?
Go to my webpage. It's linked there. It's from the Buckeye Institute.
Okay. Well, because I know on my and I'm not questioning, on my personal experience, they usually make, they're out there, they're eating at the Chop House or at Roost Chris, and I'm eating at Longhorn, because it was just a choice I made.
That's right. It's the choice you made.
And it was a choice they made to go to work for CPA firms. And my girlfriend, for example, went to work for a mutual fund company. Well, once the market went down, she's like telling me, you can retire at 56 and 57, but she's making more money, putting more money in her retirement through the mutual fund company. Well,
Mark, let me ask you, okay. Are you planning on retiring at 56 or 57?
I possibly 57, 58, yeah.
All right, and how old are you now?
How old am I now? 50.
All right, so in about 6 or 7 years, you're planning on calling it a day.
Yeah.
Now, you do know that
my retirement won't be as much as my girlfriend, who's been putting in, because she's been making more money. So what I'll probably have to do is take a job in retirement because, if I want to maintain my, livability. Yeah, I'm not like a teenager.
But your retirement is until you die, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, her retirement's till she, when she does her MRD. When she does her MRD.
She have a 401k?
Yeah, she does. Well, and I have a 401 now, also that I've put on the side.
Now, Mark, don't you think it's kind of absurd? Don't you think it's kind of absurd that people that work in the public sector have the opportunity to retire after 25 or 30 years?
People in the private sector have the opportunity to retire after 20.
Sure, if they made a lot of money, but the vast majority don't. Now, but don't you think it's absurd that someone would even think about retiring at 56?
I'd be calling myself absurd if I said yes. But yes, I think it is a little bit.
Mark, you're honest with yourself. Thank you. You're honest. All right, Bulldog on the way at 12:06. Reds baseball tomorrow. They take on the Cleveland Indians from Goodyear, Arizona. Inside pitch about 2:33. Here on the home of the Reds, 700 WL. Had a caller to Willie upset he voted for Kasich yesterday. And I'm listening to this and thinking to myself, that's rather interesting. This guy said he was a Republican. I believe he said he was a retired police officer. And he's saying, I'm starting to regret I voted for Kasich. And Willie kind of agreed with him. Willie's taking the side of the unions in this fight that's happening in Columbus and also in Wisconsin. And that's fair. And Willie has insight to it because Willie was an attorney and he has represented labor unions. I get that. Yeah, he has experience. He has expertise in it. But this caller to Willie saying that he's regretting now voting for Kasich. What did John Kasich say during the campaign that made you not believe that he was going to get into the State House and start making cuts? I believe that's what he campaigned on. Bringing spending in line and reducing spending in the state of Ohio. Same thing with the governor in Wisconsin. Fiscal responsibility, right? Many people called up this radio station and various talk shows saying, we're going to take our government back. Conservatism here and conservatism there. Let's be fiscally responsible. And I made the point before November that when the cuts come knocking at your door, you're not going to be so happy about it. And that seems to be the case now because many of the people that are protesting, for instance, some of the public employee union members, for instance, in Columbus this past week, they were banging their fist on the table saying the same thing. Now their vote is coming home. And a very famous politician in 2008 said, elections have consequences. Anyone? Bueller? Yeah, the president, Barack Obama. We all wanted smaller government, and now there are governors that are saying, well, that's what you elected me to do, so we're going to do it. However, there are people that are not so ready to make the sacrifice. So I started doing some research on this to see if people are indeed ready to give up something to make sure that we right-size our government on every level and stop running these governments in deficits. You see, the only government that could print money is the federal government. As far as the state governments, no. Local governments, no. County, not so much. They have to balance the budget. I found a Pew poll. 62% of Americans want to increase education spending. However, only 11% want to cut education spending. Combined with those who want to leave education spending as is, 87% support it. Only 12% want to cut Social Security. Remember when they were saying it's going to be upside down? Oh, is it around 2037? Then it was 2030. Then it was 2020. It is now sending out and spending more money than it's taking in. Happened in 2010, 2011. But only 12% want to cut Social Security. Only 21% want to cut the infrastructure. Only 23% want to cut scientific research. Only 28% want to cut unemployment benefits. Another study by Cornell University. Americans have no idea how much they depend on government. 53% of those surveyed said they are not using a government program. However, they have borrowed a student loan from a government. 44% are on Social Security. 39% are on Medicare. Remember all the people yelling, "Keep your hands off my Medicare"? And then the next day they were yelling, "No Obamacare"? 27% on Medicaid, 28% are on disability, 41% are receiving veterans benefits. People are crying, "We will not live off the government." But the problem is they are living off the government. And thus the quandary for a lot of these governors that were elected on the mandate to cut spending, balance the budgets, get spending in line. You see, a lot of the people that are complaining now are the ones that voted for fiscal conservatism. And as a politician, as a governor, for instance, John Kasich, how do you rectify that? To a cell phone, here's Dan, 700 WLW. Hey, Dan.
Thank you for taking my call. I have three suggestions, and then I'll let you comment on them related to the school crisis. Background, CPA, big international firm for 35 years, credibility. First, one, I think they ought to have magnet schools for those students who do not perform and are discipline problems that they go to, severely supervised, they don't contribute, then the task are pots and pans with a toothbrush. Secondly, I think they ought to utilize parochial management related to public schools.
I'm sorry, Dan, say that again. They ought to what?
Use parochial school
management, okay, I got you. Right.
Related to public schools to enhance the management and expenditures. Last is I would like for them to be Reagan-esque related to comparing the air traffic controllers. There are a lot of people out there who want to be teachers, could be good teachers, and you have to have the cojones to say, we will hire them in your place if you are fireable.
Well,
Dan, I'll leave your comment.
All right. Well, Dan, to your point, the head of the union, the teachers union in Wisconsin, called for all teachers, 98,000 teachers, to head to Madison to protest in Wisconsin this past week on Thursday and Friday. Do you feel that's responsible? A responsible statement? Or responsible behavior? There was a sign seen in Madison from a teacher yesterday. We saw it on Fox News where it said, "I'd rather be teaching." Well, what the hell is stopping you from teaching? Numerous teachers called in sick this past week, closing down school systems in Milwaukee, Madison, Wisconsin, Wisconsin Dells, and numerous other cities in the state of Wisconsin. Is that being responsible? I don't think so. 16 past 10. I'm Darryl Parks, 700 WLW. Fox 19 Storm Tracker forecast from Chief Meteorologist Steve Horstmeyer. Sunny, partly sunny today with a high of 50. For tonight, clouds moving in, maybe some snow or freezing rain near dawn with a low of 29 tomorrow. Cloudy, a few flurries, maybe some freezing rain in the morning. By afternoon, showers with a high of 54. 41, 700 WLW. Also to the point of that caller right before the break, I was talking about teachers being graded upon merit. Protesting teachers, I did a little research on this. Protesting teachers in Wisconsin, only 45% of Wisconsin fourth graders scored proficient or better in math, according to the testing there. Administered by the U.S. Department of Education. When it comes to eighth graders, 39%. Doing a good job, as Tracy would say. Doing a good job. Dave in Mainville, 700 WLW.
Darryl, I tell you what, buddy, I don't always agree with you on everything. And, sometimes your style is, a little bit on the WWF side. But the content, I'll give you an A+.
Well, thank you, Dave.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Taking on the teachers' unions and these public unions and presenting not just the emotional side of it, but the facts. That is, and standing by your guns on it and not backing down and presenting the facts. And you know what? Your arguments are cogent and they're well laid out. And I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, absolutely. I used to do some substitute teaching. And I have a lot of friends that are teachers. I've got a lot of respect for them. It's a tough job, with the rules that the federal government's laid out for them. It's not easy, but I will tell you, they're not worth what they make. And
look, there are teachers.
The bottom line is that
hang on for a second, Dave. Hang on. Hold on.
Okay,
Dave, hold on. Teachers, when you get into the profession, and if you really, truly, deep down, have a calling to be a teacher. I must say I have nothing but the utmost respect for them.
Absolutely.
Because you're right, it's a crappy job. You're dealing with other people's kids, and you're dealing with the things that parents don't want to deal with.
Well, but the other side, and I agree with you, but here's the thing. The ones that truly want to teach because they truly believe in the mission usually go to private schools where they can have a little more control, and they're going to take a lot less pay. But this idea that you can't fire teachers, the tenured, you can retire after 30, making $80,000, $90,000, $100,000. I know teachers around here in some of the districts that make $80,000, $90,000, close to $100,000.
With benefits.
With incredible benefits.
Yeah.
And yesterday, I haven't been able to listen to your whole show today, but yesterday when you substituted for Doc, and you laid out exactly how the private benefits compare to the public benefits. Where did you get those stats? I've got to get those.
Yeah, BuckeyeInstitute.org, and the paper is called, I have it here, hold on. The paper is called
BuckeyeInstitute.org.
Yeah, BuckeyeInstitute.org. The paper is called "The Grand Bargain is Still Dead." It was published on December 31st, 2010.
The Grand Bargain is Still Dead. Can you I don't suppose you can put that on your website?
Yeah, I'll put it up on my blog when I get off the air.
Yeah, that'd be great. But keep it up, buddy.
All right, Dave, have a great weekend. To Oakley, here is Mark, 700 WLW.
Yeah, Darryl, these pensions were started before Social Security, just like the railroad pension, just like the postal pension. So, so when you for every $3 they get on their pension, they take $1 away from Social Security. That was part of the Reagan, Tip O'Neill Social Security fix. Were you aware of that?
Mark, you broke up. Could you say that again?
Yeah. Okay. The pensions in Ohio were around before Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they're still in existence. Also, just like the railroad retirement, just like the postal retirement, they were around before Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
Also, public employees, for every $3 they get on their pension, they take $1 away from Social Security. Were you aware of that?
I'm not following your reasoning on that.
That was a Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, I got all that. Well, I mean, what do you mean they $1 for $3 for $1?
Okay,
what do you mean?
So if whatever a person in public employees gets $3, they cut your Social Security back $1.
Oh, I got. Yeah. I'm aware of that. Yeah.
You're aware of that?
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
You got to put that into the mix here too. Okay, that's got to be put into the mix too. When you say people, and most people that retire don't get $80,000, they probably get $25,000 or $30,000. That's what they get on their pension, and then they cut them back on Social Security.
Okay.
Okay. Also, on this House Bill 5, they're going after civil service laws too. Some of these laws go all the way back to Teddy Roosevelt. It takes a lot of the politics out of being employed by states or by local governments. Civil service laws were around for a long time, and they have worked. And they're going after the civil service laws too.
You see, but
along with the collective bargaining.
Yeah, Mark. But here's the problem. You can keep talking about Teddy Roosevelt and FDR and back in the Truman days and all that. But things have changed, and I've used this reason, and it's a very simple snapshot of what has happened here. Years ago, if you were a public employee, your salary was less and your pensions were greater. So what ended up happening was you got it on the back end if you were an employee in the public sector. In the private sector, your current salary was more, but your benefits were less when you retired. Now it's all whacked out. What's happened is if you're a public employee, your salary is greater, and do you realize that the average federal employee makes $109,000 a year?
Yeah.
How is that sustainable?
Darryl, can I say this? I think the private industry, they did away with these defined benefits for people that work for these factories. They sold this 401k thing. We're going to put all your money in this 401k. Companies used to have defined benefits. And, back in whatever year.
Right, and the companies figured out they couldn't afford those benefits any longer, so those benefits were adjusted. And people that work in the private sector have accepted those adjustments.
Yeah, and they sold the people.
Hey, look at when the economy tanked a couple of years ago, Clear Channel stopped making its contribution to our 401k plan. There wasn't a massive strike. There weren't protests in San Antonio.
Well, the point is this. I think the collective bargaining has worked in Ohio. It took a lot. At one time, when the parties flipped, people, if you were on the wrong party, you were marched out the front door and the new people came in. Collective bargaining and civil service eliminated all that political, just like Teddy Roosevelt did when in New York. It straightened out the patronage and all that crap.
But let me ask you a question. Let's take out the politics. Why are people that work in the public sector so afraid that things are going to change? Why are they afraid about working on a merit system?
Merit system, we believe people, I'm a public employee.
I understand.
We believe the good old boy system will be back. If you're not one of the good old boys, you're not going to get a raise. If somebody's got a problem with
you, so what? I mean, if the economy is bad, I haven't gotten a raise for about 4 years.
Well, we haven't either, Darryl.
All right, so we're in the same club.
Yeah, right. But I'm just saying.
And I work on a merit system.
Back,
Mark, here's the problem. Mark, here's the problem. Here's the problem. Hold on. Mark, here's the problem. every month, in fact, every week now, we get a ratings report on this radio station.
Yes, sir.
All right? That is my merit system.
Right.
If this station drops from an 11 share to a 6 share, I got problems.
Yeah.
All right? That's my merit system. I understand that at the end of the day, my report card is the ratings of this radio station, and now with my new job, my merit or my those matrix, it's based on other things. But a bottom line is, for 12 years, I was the program director of this radio station, and every month or every 3 months, we got a ratings report, and that was my report card. If it was bad, Darryl, you got problems. If it's good, hey, life's good, Darryl. Talk to you in a month. And I fully accepted that. I have no problem working on a merit system. See, I don't understand. You take the politics out of it, and maybe the politics, maybe I'm being naive and the politics can't be taken out of it. But I have no problem with a merit system when it comes to teachers. I have no problem for a merit system when it comes to public employees. I think that should be a way of the world and the employment world. News time on the big one, 700 WL. 700 WLW. Head to the Facebook.com site. Head to my Facebook page. Discussions on the inmate known as Widmer. He is now A5-99952. In fact, on my blog, his latest glamour shot, as he's in the reception center. What do they call that again? What did they call that again? Reception center, but it's no, it's not Orient. There's no, it doesn't matter. But there's such a nice name for the reception center when you go to the big house. That's where inmate is. The inmate is right now. A5-99952. Also, join me, friend me on Facebook, and you can follow along on the show and also comments on topics du jour through the week as we make the Saturday midday show a 7-day-a-week show. I got an email here. He said another big problem with teachers is the retire and rehire program. He says, my wife has a teaching degree for 8 years and no schools are hiring. Not only with teachers, but you have superintendent after superintendent that retires, and then they come back as a consultant. Isn't that nice? And they double dip. Caller before the news made mention of some facts and figures that I brought up yesterday when I was filling in for Doc Thompson. This is from the Buckeye Institute. Go to buckeyeinstitute.org. And this is a paper that was published at the end of the year, December 31st, 2010. The grand bargain is still dead. On average, here you go, 30 years of service. Public employee, private employee. On average, 30 years, a state employee in the state of Ohio will make $1,899,000. A private employee will make $1,232,000 for a difference of $667,000. The retirement package, as far as benefits that the state employee will receive, is $266,000. For a private employee, $49,000, a difference of $217,000. Social Security, state employee doesn't pay anything, doesn't receive that. Private employee, $94,000. Health benefits, $685,000 for a state employee. Private employee, $584,000 for a difference of $101,000. Sick pay, $82,000 for a state employee. For a private employee, $16,000, a difference of $66,000. For a total compensation package over 30 years, for a state employee, $2,932,000 versus a private employee, $1,975,000, and the difference there is almost $1 million, $957,000. Just go to buckeyeinstitute.org. The information right there. 513-749-7000, 1-800-THE-BIG-1, pound 700 on AT&T, should a line become available. Let's head to, what are you driving on 7 Mile there, Dan?
Yeah, I'm here in 7 Mile. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing good. I just want to make a comment about the teacher situation. This going to the school during the winter time is an old, outdated program where they used to have to help at the farm during the summer and stuff. Why don't we have go through let's say March through October, and then give them December, January, and February off, where you don't have to do the school closings every morning. You could have a lot more revenue for your. You think Jim Scott enjoys sitting reading them names over and over?
Dan, Jim Scott. Another secret of the big one. Yeah, he likes doing those. Teachers would never give up the winter, nor would they never give up the summer, and nor would they ever settle for a 12-month-a-year school year. They like having those 2.5 months off. They like having all the holidays off. They like the 2 weeks in the winter. They like the 2-week spring break. It's a great gig. It's a super gig. I figured this out once. If you look at a teacher, the average person, a 40-hour week, which is considered full-time, is 2,080 hours per week. I figured that out one time, and I don't have the figures in front of me. How many hours a teacher actually works inside the classroom, and how much, and then you take their salary and you figure out the hourly salary based on that. Believe me, the teachers union, they don't want you to know that. They don't want any taxpayer to know that. All right, about 18 in front of 11 o'clock. Eric Dieters joins you at 12:06 today. He'll be yelling Attica, 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 and he'll be telling you about freeericdieters.com. Today on the big Reds Power Packs on sale today. They went on sale at 9 o'clock this morning. It was opening day, Yankees series, Cardinals series. Reds.com/Power Pack. Man, opening day is coming up quick, ain't it? UC basketball tonight as they take on Providence in Providence, Rhode Island. Our coverage starts at 6:33 this evening. On the big one, also Xavier and Fordham tonight. Tip-off at 8 o'clock, 7:30 pregame show on 55 KRC. Tomorrow it's the Daytona 500, noon on Fox 19. Budget that was just proposed. You realize they want to hire 5,100 new IRS agents? That's just what we need. Another 5,100 IRS agents. Incredible. To Liberty Township, here's Dave, 700 WLW.
Hey, Darryl. Hey, I want to make a comment. You got all these voters, they just seem to like up here in Lakota, our last levy went down 53 to 47%. And, then they cut busing, and they're extorting the voters. I think this levy's going to pass next time just because of the busing thing. And, they're pulling enough money out of my neighborhood of 4 bridges alone to buy and operate an aircraft carrier.
It's interesting you mentioned that, Dave. In my neighborhood, there are 97 homes. Mm-hmm. And I figured out one time, when I was looking at my tax bill, and just figuring everyone in the neighborhood was paying the same amount to Forest Hill Schools, how much was going to Forest Hill Schools just from my neighborhood and those 97 homes?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I calculated up here. It's in the millions, I think. But
yeah, it's in the millions.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you this. We got this last rally they had. 150 people showed up at this rally, and the guy running it was one of our township trustees, Pat Hiltman, and he's out there saying, hey, you got to vote for a levy. Well, but 2 of his kids are Lakota teachers. Well, one of them's a teacher. The other one's an assistant swim coach. Hey, maybe the assistant swim coach, we can get rid of them, and the kids can pick up their own wet towels. Okay, this is ridiculous.
Dave, you bring back a great memory when I was at high school. There was a guy that we always wondered and I played sports, but also in phys ed class, there was a guy that his only job was to throw you towels as you came out of the shower.
There you go.
And he never taught a class. He never coached a team. He never was an equipment manager. He threw you towels.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what a great gig that is.
Yeah. Well, one other thing I want to mention is that if people keep voting for these levies, I mean, there's already deflationary pressures on the values of our homes now. What's going to happen when your property taxes are so high that you're going to have to give your home away?
Well, first of all, you bring up busing, and I'm going to give you some facts and figures here, Dave.
Okay.
You bring up busing. The reason they cut the busing first is to inconvenience the parents so they'll vote for the levy the next time around.
That's right.
That's what's going on there.
Extortion.
But do you realize in Butler County, you ready for this?
Lay it on me.
Here is the average salary, the average wages of people working in Butler County. Private sector employee. Are you a private sector employee?
Absolutely.
All right. $39,231. If you're a state or a local government employee living in Butler County, on average, you make $42,026. If you're a federal government employee living in Butler County, on average, you make $53,641.
Yeah, pretty good gig.
Whoa. There's one more. If you're a school teacher, meaning in Lakota, in Butler County, on average, you make, you ready for this? Yeah. $62,331.
Yeah, and get this, they got 9 psychologists on the payroll. 9 psychologists. I don't know what we need psychologists for. We got 9 psychologists on the payroll here in Lakota, making $90,000 a year. Now, what are they doing? Administering the Ritalin?
Well, they're talking to the children because they're upset they have to walk a mile to school.
Oh, yeah, and I was coming home. One day, and there's the kids out there wearing I'm the Lakota Levy T-shirts, holding up traffic and whatever. I gave them the old single-digit salute. What are you getting your minions out there?
No. Never give a kid. That's weak, Dave. You can't do that, buddy.
I guess I'm just upset.
You can do it to the parents. Don't do it to the kids.
I'm just tired of getting my pocket picked.
I hear you.
But, they're going to leverage this. And then John Kasich said he's going to cut 10 to 20% out of the budget, correct?
That's what he said, and he's doing it.
Of the education budget. And Lakota said, okay, even if we put a levy on the ballot, we're not going to reinstate busing. Well, translation, we got to take care of the salary.
If you're going to cut 10 to 20% out of education, you're going to try to get costs in line, you're going to have to go toward benefits, and you're going to have to start tapping into salaries as well. I'm Darryl Parks. Eric Dieters at 12:06 today. The big one, 700 WL. 700 WLW. Remember the prediction of Mark, the emailer. He says, mark it down. Kevin Harvick driving Dale Earnhardt's old number 3 car now with a new black paint job will win the Daytona 500. First it was Junior's pole, and then Michael Waltrip winning the truck race last night. 10 years to the day that Earnhardt passed away on the last lap of the Daytona 500. Michael Waltrip won that race. The script calls for Dale's car to win on Sunday. Bet the house, says Mark. We will find out tomorrow with the Great American Race. All right, here we go. Here's Frank and Anderson, 700 WLW.
Hey, Darryl, first-time caller, long-time listener. Normally, I love your show, but I got to tell you, you got some real flaws in this argument of yours. First of all, are you in management?
Yes.
Okay, that helps me understand a little bit. Are you familiar with the equity theory?
And what's the equity theory, Frank?
Well, the equity theory is basically where you evaluate peers in your particular business or employment, and you take their benefits and their costs, and you see how you're doing on a scale. Now, what a lot of people like to do is they like to project theirs on someone who maybe doesn't have anything to do with their line of work. So you get an inaccurate reading. I find so many flaws in this. First of all, I don't know any teachers who get 2.5 months off. You know what
really?
I mean? I have no idea who gets...
Stop over at Nagel Middle School and find out.
Well, we could do that, absolutely. But chances are, if they are off...
Knock on the door in July.
Well, in July, that's only 4 weeks.
All right, knock on the door on December 23rd.
How about August 15th? That's the middle of summer, and they're all coming back. But if you won't see them there because they're probably in a university working on their master's degree, which
you mean like those teacher in service days they get?
What, 3 or 4 a year during the calendar year? No, I'm talking about having to acquire a master's degree within 10 years of their graduation.
Well, so what?
Why would the government mandate that
so
I have
what?
to have what do you mean, so what? It's extremely costly, both in time and money. And you're saying the teachers don't do anything.
Well, Frank, did you go to college?
The summer off. Yes, I did go to college.
All right, and what do you hold?
I hold a bachelor's degree.
Okay, as do
but
I.
I understand.
See, I went to school. See, Frank, I went to school because because I wanted to get an education, because, Frank, I wanted to go to school and have a bachelor's degree. I wanted to have that degree to fall back on. I have a Bachelor of Arts degree that, Frank, I graduated in college in 4 years. You know, a lot of people take the 5 and the 6 year plan, Frank. I happen to take the 4-year plan. And, Frank, I took the 4-year plan and I went to school 2 summers so I can graduate in 4 years and get on with my life. Because I felt it was important, and because I felt it was important to have a higher degree, more than the New York State Regents diploma I got when I graduated from high school. Thank you. It's okay to want things, as opposed to have things mandated for you. I'll catch you at Anderson Bar and Grill, Frank. It's a minute before 11 o'clock. Dieter's on the way. FreeEricDieters.com. Attica! 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 At 12:06 on the home of the Reds, 700 WL.